Most people think motivation is something you either have or you don't, like a personality trait, like luck. But what if I told you that one psychologist writing over 100 years ago already figured out exactly why you lose motivation, and more importantly, exactly how to get it back? Not through hype, not through discipline, but through something much quieter and much more powerful. His name was Alfred Adler, and what he discovered changes everything. Here's something worth sitting with for a moment. You've probably had days where you woke up energized, clear, ready to move, and days where even the smallest task felt impossible. Same person, same life, different inner state. The question isn't what's wrong with you on those hard days. The question is, what's actually driving human motivation at the deepest level? Adler believed he had the answer, and it wasn't willpower. It wasn't positive thinking. It was something he called social interest. The felt sense that your life is connected to something beyond yourself, that what you do matters to others, that you belong. When that sense is alive in you, motivation flows naturally. When it fades, everything becomes heavy. Let that land for a second. Adler was a contemporary of Freud, but he broke away from him, and for a very specific reason. Freud believed human beings were essentially driven by inner forces they couldn't control. Instincts, past traumas, unconscious drives. In Freud's world, your history was your destiny. Adler disagreed, profoundly. He believed that human beings are always moving towards something, not away from something. We are goal-oriented creatures, not driven by the past, but pulled by the future. And that one shift in perspective is enormously freeing, because it means that no matter what happened to you before today, you still have the power to choose the direction you're moving in. This is why Adler psychology feels so different. It isn't about uncovering what's broken inside you. It's about understanding where you're trying to go and whether that direction is actually yours. Here's one of the most important ideas Adler ever introduced. He called it the inferiority feeling. And before you assume this is about having low self-esteem, stay with me, because this is actually good news. Adler believed that every human being carries a sense of inferiority. Not as a disorder, not as a flaw, but as a universal human experience. We are born helpless. We grow up surrounded by people who are taller, stronger, more capable. We feel small. We feel behind. We feel like we're not quite enough. And for most people, that feeling is deeply uncomfortable. So they do one of two things. They either run from it, numbing themselves, procrastinating, avoiding anything that might confirm their fears. Or they overcompensate, chasing status, proving themselves, never resting. Neither path leads to real motivation. But Adler said, there's a third way. He called it striving for superiority, and he didn't mean superiority over others. He meant the natural, healthy human desire to grow. To move from a place of less to a place of more. From confusion to clarity. From weakness to strength. From feeling stuck to feeling capable. That drive, when it's properly understood, is not your enemy. It's your engine. So how does this actually show up in daily life? Think about a moment when you felt genuinely, sustainably motivated. Not the frantic energy of panic. Not the brief high of a new beginning. But a calm, steady, meaningful kind of motivation that kept you moving even when things got hard. Chances are, in that moment, you were doing something that felt connected to others. You were building something that mattered beyond yourself. You were contributing to your family, your community, your craft, a person you loved. Adler would say, that's the mechanism. That's social interest at work. Motivation doesn't come from focusing on yourself. It comes from expanding beyond yourself. This is counterintuitive in a world that constantly tells you to optimize your morning routine, protect your energy, and be your own priority. And look, self-care matters, rest matters, boundaries matter. But Adler would gently point out that a life organized entirely around the self tends to feel hollow over time. The more inward we turn, the less alive we feel. The antidote isn't grand. It doesn't require a cause or a movement. It can be as simple as asking, who am I doing this for? Who benefits when I show up well today? There's another concept in Adler's work that speaks directly to motivation: style of life. This is the unique pattern each of us develops, often in childhood, for how we approach the world. Our habitual way of thinking, feeling, and acting. Some people move through life with a getting style, always waiting for things to come to them, passive, holding back. Others have an avoiding style, steering clear of failure by never fully engaging. And others have a socially useful style, actively contributing, connected, engaged. Here's what matters about this. Your style of life shapes what feels motivating to you. And if your deepest strategy is to avoid failure, then traditional motivational advice, dream bigger, push harder, visualize success, will actually backfire, because underneath all that effort is the same old fear. But when you start to notice your pattern, something shifts. You're no longer at the mercy of it. You can begin to choose differently. Not all at once. Gently, deliberately. One of the most quietly revolutionary things Adler said was this: the meaning of life is contribution, not achievement, not happiness. Contribution. He didn't mean you need to sacrifice yourself or abandon your own needs. He meant that the deepest human satisfaction comes from feeling useful, from knowing that your presence in the world makes a difference to someone, somewhere. And when you lose motivation, really lose it, the kind of loss that feels like fog, like apathy, like nothing matters, Adler would look not at your habits or your schedule, but at your sense of belonging. He would ask, do you feel connected? Do you feel needed? Do you feel like you matter? Because if the answer is no, all the productivity hacks in the world won't help. The solution isn't a better system. The solution is reconnection. This has a very practical implication. When you notice your motivation dropping, and it will. Because motivation is not a permanent state for anyone, instead of immediately asking, how do I get motivated again? Try asking a different question. Ask, where have I disconnected? Maybe you've been working in isolation for too long. Maybe you've drifted from the reason you started something. Maybe a relationship has become strained and you're carrying that weight without realizing how much it's pulling on you. Maybe you've been so focused on your personal goals that you've forgotten who you're building them for. That question, where have I disconnected, is often a more honest entry point than how do I get more disciplined. Adler also had a deeply compassionate view of courage. He believed that living a meaningful, connected life required what he called the courage to be imperfect. This phrase is worth returning to, because it quietly dismantles one of the biggest motivation killers there is: perfectionism. So many people aren't actually unmotivated. They're afraid. Afraid that what they create won't be good enough. Afraid that if they try and fall short, it will confirm something they secretly believe about themselves. So they wait. They overthink. They prepare indefinitely. Adler would say, the willingness to act imperfectly is not weakness. It is a form of courage. It is an act of trust. Trust that your contribution matters even before it's polished. Trust that connection is more important than perfection. This is a gentler kind of motivation, not the roaring, aggressive kind you see on motivational videos. Something quieter. Something that actually lasts. Here's something worth carrying with you. Adler believed that each morning carries a kind of choice, not always conscious, but always present. The choice of whether to orient your day toward yourself alone or toward something larger. Toward isolation or connection. Toward fear or contribution. You don't have to get this right every day. You won't. Nobody does. But the awareness itself, the simple act of asking, am I moving toward connection today or away from it, starts to shift how you move through the hours. Small contributions add up. Kind word to someone who needed it. Showing up fully for a conversation. Doing your work with care. Knowing someone on the other end will receive it. These aren't small things dressed up as big things. They are, according to Adler, the actual substance of a motivated life. So to bring this all together, Adler psychology offers something that most motivational frameworks don't. It offers a why that goes deeper than willpower. You don't need to feel extraordinary. You don't need a perfect morning routine or a spotless vision board. You need a felt sense that your life is woven into the lives of others, that you belong, that you matter. That what you do, however ordinary it looks from the outside, carries meaning. When that sense is present, motivation is almost automatic. Not effortless, but natural. The way water flows downhill, not because it's trying, but because that's simply its direction. And on the days when motivation is gone, that's not a character flaw. That's information. It's a quiet signal that somewhere a connection has frayed, and it can be restored. That's the gift of Adler's work, not a set of techniques, not a 10-step plan, but a fundamentally different way of understanding yourself as a social being, a contributing being, a being who finds meaning not in the mirror, but in the space between yourself and others. Carry that with you today and see what shifts. If this resonated with you, share it with someone who needs to hear this. Don't forget to like the video, and if you want more videos like this, make sure to subscribe. I'll see you in the next one.